is there anybody here who is not a Psych Cowboy? Oh, okay, so we got a couple. That's okay. Welcome. So, have you guys actually are you?
You're not leaving.
They just would love to. Yeah. Okay, if you guys are running applause.
So you're not leaving here alive. So not that we have any strong feelings. That's right. I'm sorry.
Oh, that side of the room is for the people that don't know what we're doing here and just needed a place to sit down.
That's totally fine. So, I'll give a brief introduction for our panel here. So, my name is Andrew J. Landy. I am your moderator. I believe I'm now the moderator.
We wrangled him in.
As Spike Spiegel, one of the main characters of the series.
Imagine if you had a microphone.
Imagine if I did have a microphone. But that's okay. I had some vocal lessons and I learned how to project. And this room's actually not too bad. It's not absorbing.
It's not too bad.
Not bad. To my left, your right, dressed as Faye Valentine from the show Cowboy Bebop, of course. This is Space Pizza Cosplay with the show. We're here to I don't know what. We're just here.
We're gonna co-host this thing.
Yeah, you'll be asking questions. But I'd like to move on to our panel here, our esteemed guests. First of all, let's start on the very end here. Give it up for Mary and Les Claypool. In the third spot, of course, we have Leah Sargent. And rounding out the batting order here is Paul St. Peter.
Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud?
It's okay, there's no microphones. It's not like we're being.
That's right. If we had a microphone.
I'm sure
Okay.
somebody's.
We love you. Thank you. Thank
No,
you.
that was not a snipe attack. Actually, it is totally fine. That was actually we're not going to even go there. So, folks, if you wouldn't mind just telling everybody, some who may not be familiar with the inner workings of Cowboy Bebop. What were all your positions in regards to the show? What did you do for the show exactly? Mary, let's start with you first.
Well, I was a writer. I was not the main writer. The main writer was Mark Handler, who was in charge of writing the English adaptation, the localization, the ADR scripts for that. And he had to step away from the series for a while, and I was assigned to write one episode, which was episode 22, Cowboy Funk. Well, that was my contribution. In fact, it was interesting because I had met Mark, but I didn't know anything about the series. So when I was told that I would be writing an episode of Cowboy Bebop, my director, friend, and mentor, Kevin, had come to me to say that I would be writing this. And I said, well, I don't know what's a Cowboy Bebop. I have no idea. Put it on the pile, I'll get to it. And as I got into the show and started to read it and write it, it's like, this is really great. And I loved the show. I loved the characters. Immediately fell in love with it and wanted to write more. And what's interesting about Cowboy Bebop, episode 22, is that it came out briefly and then it was shelved because the episode deals with a bomber, a Ted Kaczynski type of bomber who has a manifesto and he blows up Twin Towers. So it was shelved right after 9/11. And then it came back, so it was like a great missing episode for a while. But it was great to work on the show and I got to know all the actors who came in to do that. And Magnitude 8, my husband's studio.
So my story is several stories, and I'm not going to tell them all at once because then I'm hogging the panel. We'll get to all my shenanigans. Initially, there is no Bebop for me. I turned that sucker down.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I didn't turn it down by name, but Kevin Seymour, Yutaka Maseba, and myself would get together every few months, and we'd have this long list of titles, and we'd sit there and try to discuss, okay, what's the deadlines, where do we schedule, who goes where, and at some point, we would hit a cutoff point where I just couldn't handle it at Magnitude 8 anymore. There's just too many shows. So, I don't know if you guys know this, but Cowboy Bebop was not a popular show prior to the English dub. It was just, that's okay. Nobody was going nuts about it. So none of us three that usually made these decisions as to like, well, I want that show. That's an excellent one. We'll keep that one. Nobody knew anything about it, so they just said, well, we'll just take these 2 shows off your calendar. One was Cowboy Bebop, one was Outlaw Star. Yeah, kicking myself in the butt for a while after those got finished. But, so my story is, I just never had any involvement with it. Yeah, I doubt I need it, but I'll take it. Thanks there, audio guy. So initially, I turned it down, not by name, just as I can only handle 11 shows, and there's 13 on their calendar. So away it goes, and I continue with my life and all the shows I'm working on. Then I get this phone call, and it's Yutaka Maseva saying, so the studio that we're dubbing Cowboy Bebop at, Mary Elizabeth is going to need neck surgery by the time she's done with this because they don't have any way to talk to the actor. And she's going crazy. She has to like sit halfway up, lean over, press a button on their mixing console with her neck in a weird position hundreds of times a day. And I'm thinking, who did I turn this show down to? What kind of studio are you people working at? So he says, could you really go stop and see what's going on? So I drive, and you know, you were
Yeah.
at Kappa Studios, because I'm not in business and nobody can be mad at me anymore. So I drive over there, and I walk in, and I'm trying to just suss out quickly, you know, because there's an actor in the booth, and there's Mary Elizabeth. She's sitting there, and she's looking at me with this crazy look in her eyes, like this show's gonna kill me. And so I'm like, just you guys work. I'll watch and see what is happening technically. And there's Mary, and you know, a line goes by, and she goes, okay, now I need you to do blah, 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 blah. And she sits back, no, do it a little bit. And I'm thinking, what are you people doing? You've never done this before. So this young kid is sitting there, he's like 20 years old or something, he's the engineer. And I said, so do you have a spare mic with an on and off button? Oh yeah, no, we got lots of those. You have like a 10-foot mic cord? Oh, of course. You have like a short microphone stand? Yeah, no, we have them because we use them to record drums and stuff. Do I need to keep speaking? Go get all 3. So, okay, yeah, we can do that. Youthful enthusiasm. So he runs and gets all 3. I hook it up. I stick the mic in front of Mary Elizabeth with a little on and off switch. I said, here, plug that into one of your open channels in that big old console that you're only using 1 or 2 channels. Turn up the volume and send that signal to the headphones in the ADR booth. Oh yeah, I can do all of that.
I haven't,
Yeah.
And so, and Mary Elizabeth just says, okay, so now on the next line.
Yeah.
And she's like, thank you. And I leave just thinking, really, I'm not dubbing that show. So initially, that's it for me. I'll get back to my other shenanigans later. But for me, that's the end of my involvement in Cowboy Bebop. Is the director can now talk to the actors.
All right.
And doesn't need neck surgery.
Exactly.
Leah and Paul were actually, believe it or not, they were 2 voice actors on the show featuring Punch and Judy. Very titular characters, very distinct voices. Tell us a little bit about your involvement in the show and as a character, Punch and Judy.
Well, you know, I can't really speak for what Kevin said to you in order to play this role, because that's just too precious and you have to do that. But when Kevin had called me up to play Judy, he said, Leah, will you do just this sweet little role? And I said, sure. He says, in Cowboy Bebop? Same thing. Cowboy what?
Who's a what's pop?
This like doesn't sound like anime. What the hell are you talking about? And so he tells me a little bit about it, and he says, it's not really what I would normally have you do, but I think you should do it. And I went, okay, you know. So I go in there, and as soon as I heard him, because he had already been recorded before me, yes, and so, well, not all of them, but sometimes, you know, depending upon the schedule. I went, couldn't stop laughing in order to do my lines for Judy. And Mary Elizabeth, the director, for those of you who don't know, she knew what she wanted from the very beginning when she saw this show. She knew exactly what she wanted from the performances and from the writing, everything to fall into place. And so I started listening to the Japanese, and I kind of just, in my own history of working with it, I would listen to the Japanese and try to emulate what the Japanese was doing. And she goes, no, we're going to do this. And she would tell me what to do, and I'm like, oh my God, okay. And so it became this whole thing of changing over into this particular character. that to this day, I have to listen, and some of you were here early, you might have heard, I have to listen to her in order to emulate myself, because I can't remember what the hell she does, because Mary Elizabeth was like, no, it's this way. I'm like, God, I just can't hear it that way. But anyway, she's too much fun, and of course, playing opposite this guy, whether we were in the booth together or not, is just too much fun. So that's what made Punch and Judy happy for me. And Judy, to me, has become obviously a fun character. She's just delightful. And I would have normally not, even opened my arms to that. But Kevin was like, no, I think you should do it. And I'm glad he did.
Yeah, Kevin Seymour was that way. He would think of someone for a role, or a role would be described, and he would say, hey, that sounds like, that sort of thing. Well, in my particular case, Kevin called me, I was at home, called up and he said, okay, Paul, I have this new show, and they've given me the breakdown of all the characters, and they told me about this one. He has to sound Mexican, and he has to sound Texan, and he's black. And they're not sure how to mix all of that. He said, you are the only one I could think of.
Get the white guy.
Because I'm a linguist and a dialectician and a phoneticist, and so my expertise is in accents and dialects. And so when he asked me then, can you do 2 accents at one time? And I said, no, you can't do 2 accents at the same time, but I'll do this for you. I will change accents right in the middle of the line for you. And so that's why when you hear Punch, it's so insane. Like she said, I once did a delivery on a line that made Mary and I forget the engineer's name on it at that particular time.
I refer to him as no talkback guy.
That's okay, good, yeah.
And young.
Yeah, and don't touch the button guy, right? And I said, okay, I'll go ahead and mix all that stuff up for you. At one point, I did a cue from Mary and the engineer, and they were laughing so hard, Mary fell back in her chair, and the engineer dropped his head laughing so much, he forgot to hit the stop button, and the episode just kept rolling. And I'm just watching them, and I'm going like, how is this possibly going to sell to anyone? And as Mary often said, we're going to get letters. My performance, people are going to get letters because there's got to be something wrong. There has to be something wrong.
Morally wrong.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the first time I saw that, I watched the characters. I was watching the characters, and it's like, what is he doing? Why is his accent going in and out? It's like, Paul knows better.
She didn't know that's what the direction was.
I didn't know. It's like he's spot on doing that, and now he's doing this. It's like, Paul, what are you doing?
He's gone senile.
And I do speak a pretty fair amount of Spanish, so when they have me do the parts where I was speaking Spanish, they adios mi compañeros, I was doing all this stuff, but they wanted me to mix it in, and Mary would say, no, Paul, I don't want a good accent there. Do something really bad, And so I was mixing, sounding like a Texan and sounding like I was Mexican too, and that's why I would say, shucks howdy, how y'all doing, And Mary would just be looking at me, and she said, when other people in the show do something a little funny, Kevin will chuckle a little bit, okay? Yeah. He says, whenever he hears your part, he starts laughing so hard he can barely stay on his chair, And then I listen to the series and I listen to my playback, I thought, how the hell did the network let us, or anybody let us put that on the air?
But let me ask you something. That was Kevin's idea to have all 3, correct?
Yeah, well, actually, the character's black. I never did anything that you would call, black per se, all right? But he was the one that said, that the client described it. They said, we're looking for da-da-da-da-da, and that's when he asked me, can you do 2 accents at the same time? And I said, well, no, you can't. You can't say, I can't be a Bostonian and a Southerner both at the same time, so you don't do it like that. But I said, right in the middle of a line, I will just change accents. And we found the character, actually the day we found the character was because of a very problematic line. As you guys know, we're stuck with the anime, okay? We don't get to change it, okay? So this was when Judy and I were doing something, and we had done the introduction of the show. She had her line, and I had my opening line, etc. And then my line was, and now for today's hot news, okay? That's what big shot. We're doing the hot news about the bounty hunters. Problem was the animation was like this. Okay. So now we're stuck with the sing. We're stuck with the animation, and so we're Mary and the engineer were. What do we do? I said, oh, come, just roll, just do it. You know. And so when we were supposed to be doing, and the line is, and now for today's hot news, I said, go. So they hit it, and I said, and now for today's hot news. That's how I solved that. It's an example I like to give where the accent saved me and actually gave me an idea of how to say the line. Sometimes other things influence, but that's where I thought the accent will work. That's why it just hit me, a bolt from the blue. I said, just roll.
You know, that's similar with Judy because she just goes, and she'll go, oh, and almost little just like can fill in if necessary when there's no word. Yeah.
Yeah, and often the Japanese won't do that. There's something in the script that says N-I-O-J, not in original Japanese. And we'll pick it up because they don't always do all the stuff that we expect to be done here. You know, when you see, like when she was talking about that and she has a reaction, if there isn't anything there, if her reaction is not there, there's a dead spot in between the lines. You can't do that in anime. Anime just has to be kept alive all the time. Even in this show, which was so adult, you know, especially compared to a lot of the stuff I've done.
Yes.
I don't know, you just handed me a microphone.
That's fine, no, you guys keep the mic actually, because that's it. I'm fine projecting, that's totally okay.
Well, if somebody had your mind.
No, it's totally fine actually. I was literally just gonna ask all of you, you've all got to work at least together at one point, because I understand when voice acting is done, it's not always everybody's in at the same time, you get actors in, depending schedules. Was there a certain time where you were all in the studios together? Take us through a day, and also take us through a day at the studio, developing Punch and Judy, and on the back end, you know, what you're going through in Cowboy Bebop, what you're seeing, what you're hearing. Take us through that process actually. What was all of that like? What was going through your head?
Well, since I wasn't there, I'm going to pass the microphone, but I do have one thing to say about what you were saying. A lot of people don't know this about Japanese animation, and since we dealt with the original creators on almost every show we ever worked on, we had that rare experience. He was mentioning that the Japanese voices don't tightly match what they've animated. Well, there's a reason for that. In Japan, for a half-hour episode, you'll have all the actors in a room at the same time in a semicircle around the microphones, and whereas us, we'll take 2 to 3 days to do one episode. I'm not sure what it is now, but that was 2 to 3 days is kind of what we did for most of our career. In Japan, 4 hours, and you are done. And whatever you got is what goes into the marketplace because that's the budget. 4 hours, everybody in a semicircle, next episode, please. So what he's talking about, a lot of those like, well, there's nothing in that lip flapping. Well, yeah, there's a reason for that. We got 4 sticking out.
Wait, what did you say?
That a lot of Japanese animation, people, it's not like the animation you would have here at Disney or typical animation where the voice is recorded and it's animated to the voice. It's animated first and then the actors will dub it into Japanese.
Yeah.
And then it comes here and it has to be dubbed into English. It's dubbed twice. So what you see in the original Japanese is not animated to the voice like we do here. So it's a whole different process. So you may see it out of sync from the original product, and then it goes into whatever language it's being done. Also, one thing I wanted to note from a writer's perspective, you have no idea what the actors have to deal with when they come in. Sometimes they don't even know which characters they're going to read if they've had a little prep or looking at sides or a script before they come into the booth. They aren't just reading a sentence, they're reading dialogue that looks like hieroglyphics. There are notations, special notations. There are things called hitches. There may be emboldened areas, italicized. There's a lot of direction that the writer puts into the script for the actors, and every writer has a different style and often varies from studio to studio. So they have to come in, sometimes cold, look at a script with these notations,
decipher the notations, read it so that it's in sync, has the right inflection, the pause, whatever it has to be, and then they have to put their own special acting spin into the character. So they're doing a very highly technical thing as well as an artistry.
Are we?
In 2 or 3 takes, because that's all you get. Because after 2 or 3 takes, we gotta move on. There's 2 more actors sitting out by the pool table, ready to come in. And it's honestly amazing that every performance doesn't sound like this. I am just reading these lines so that I can get the hell out of this movie, because I've got 2 tries at this and there's 9 other people coming in today and nobody told me what role I'm playing. If I had $1 for every time an actor looked at me when they came in the door and said, "So what am I doing today?"
Yeah.
I'd be rich.
Yeah. I would get, when I was casting a show or something, sometimes an actor would call me up and say, "Can I get the script before I come in?" I went,
I don't have
it
it.
does
Why
not
would
work
you?
like that. Not at all. But I have to say that part of that is what makes it kind of exciting, and also the line's a little bit more energized and fresh, because we're not rehearsing and sort of, drilling it out and almost, burning it to the ground before we even record it. So a lot of times rehearsals in this situation is detriment, as opposed to it, organically coming out of us and having visceral reactions to things and it being just impulsive like that. So I loved it, and I come from theater where you rehearse, and I love that. So to me, those are those 2 different worlds that make it much more richer for each situation. So I like one for the other. Yeah.
No, believe it or not, I'm not being praised. I mean, I'm not being paid to praise the actors. But another thing that people...
But you're gonna get plastic.
Yeah, as long as I get a beer out of you. Another criticism that the American side actors get is, well, it doesn't sound as energetic, and it's a little more reedy or stiff. Why does the Japanese flow a little bit better? I know the Japanese side. I know how it works. I know the people behind the scenes, but that was our special, superpower back then, was we knew all those people. And they just come right out and say, "We don't care about sync at all. It's irrelevant to us. If we can get close to the mouth opening and end when the last mouth flap is somewhere, all we care about is belting that line out as best we can, and sync in Japan is not part of the relevant process." Well, here in America,
That's a joke if you don't.
in America, if you're not in sync, people are like, "What the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah.
It's gotta be tight."
Would you say that's more like, if you're not in sync, it's like, why are you doing the line then?
I mean, the criticism on the American side from everybody involved in the recording process would be, you have to be in sync. That's expected in America. In Japan, I can tell you firsthand experience from talking to the people that were there at the sessions, we don't care. Well, and let's face it, 4 hours to do 2.5 days worth of work. So yes, you can get a more free-flowing performance if you're not looking at lips that were never animated to the language you're speaking anyway. So it always amazes me when people say, "That was a good performance," and you look and go, "And it's in sync." Okay, 2 things happened here. You had an amazing writer who took the time to watch those lips and go, "Okay, in English, these are the words that would be said, but I still have to get the meaning of that sentence. I can't just change the words because they look better in those lips. It's still got to mean the same thing." And then the actor is comfortable enough with all the hitches and the little notations and the scripts to actually give it.
What they're looking for. It's in between. And who of you would prefer the Japanese and forget about all of us?
Some of us seem to be at the wrong panel. No matter what you're wearing.
I had to ask.
No, and it is important to keep in mind that that's one thing I was told very early on, is that the Japanese do not care about sync. Here's what bothers me when you don't. Her character starts speaking and my character is still going flap, flap, flap.
Yes.
So
It's
that
distracting.
it becomes very, very difficult to stay with the show. You can be distracted. And to me, the precision that we bring to that is very important, okay? Yeah, their problem again is the day you're going to do the session. Sometimes they're delivered when you've arrived. Second half of the script will be here by the time we're done with the first hour. That does happen.
And in addition to that, if you get the script and you see your lines, let's say you have 20 lines, and you start rehearsing those lines, you start practicing them. You could come in and look at picture, which you don't get with your script. And we have to change those lines anyway. So now you've rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed, and you're used to saying the line a certain way. So you're rehearsing, it's sort of futile, because it ends up changing 9 times out of 10, because it's not in sync proper, or there's an attitude change or adjustment. And you have to wait for the director and the picture to suggest that.
Given the way we do this, there is a real advantage in not having a chance to get stale with the lines.
Yeah.
Because I know as a stage actor, with all the years that I've been doing, you know, quote unquote legit theater, etc., anything from Shakespeare to Shaw to, you know, Thomas Wolfe, for that matter.
Shaw's legit now?
Yeah, he used to be. Well, they don't call him Georgie anymore, that helps us. You do, by the end of the run, you're trying to keep yourself interested and keep everything fresh. Repetition simply does that to a human being. There's nothing wrong with it. Your challenge as an actor is to try to keep it going and keep it fresh. We, on the other hand, when I walk in there and I haven't seen the line before, I look at it and I look at the time code and I can tell if it's underwritten or overwritten immediately. I can tell if I need to go fast, slow, and there's a hitch in there. I know it needs to be a short hitch or a longer hitch. All these things, all through experience. It is not because I had a chance to sit down the night before or 2 days before with my pipe in my mouth and my dog at my feet and, and a very good nice whiskey to sit upon, you know. So it has nothing to do with rehearsing. We go in and we're just handed this stuff. When it comes to we have to rewrite it or we need to change something like that, we will listen to the OJ, the original Japanese, to get pronunciations. I will listen for timing. But I rely on my writers to make this work in English, because the saying that the Japanese just don't give a damn about sync is very true. So if I'm listening for the timing and watching the sync, I'm going, what the hell? They just can't give a damn about it is the problem.
Not in 4 hours. Nope.
Well, there's a second part to your question.
No, those were the two parts. In other words, you did it in a particular way in the past, and you know, given the current advances and stuff like that, would there be any advantage to changing it up?
Well,
in other words, not doing it the way you always had.
Tools and the fact that people can now, you know, have a laptop at their. Back when I started, we didn't have laptops.
Right. Precisely.
This was when we had to loop in the daytime. We hadn't conquered fire yet, you know.
Well, I just want to say that I don't think a script has ever been written that hasn't been changed once it enters the studio.
Yeah.
I mean, the writer is writing to the best of his or her ability, and once it goes into the studio, an actor may talk faster, may talk shorter, may want to change something, and a lot of times they'll come up with something fresh on the fly. So you have something, hey, well, this will work better, and they just go with that. And if a writer has the luxury of writing on a series and gets to know the actors, you start to know the personality of the character in conjunction with the actors, how quickly they can do. There are actors who can't say certain words or speak.
Or they might have a problem with like their T's or their F's or their S's or something.
Or their false.
So you avoid that.
Right. Or their false teeth coming out when they're talking too fast. So I can't write fast lines. No names. But you know, these are things that the actors have to deal with once they get the script. It's going to change, or there's going to be a sudden change from Japan. Oh no, we can't use that name or that word. And that word or that term is several syllables long. We want to use this one syllable. Oh, okay. Now the whole line has to be rewritten. So there's a lot of things that come into play that will have to be changed. And everyone has to be flexible on that front.
Absolutely.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit of my story because I'm still not technically involved.
So make it up.
On Bebop. No, I was.
You can tell them anything.
I spent months on that show eventually. So if I'm not mistaken, initially you guys were being tracked on tape. I don't think Pro Tools was.
I don't know.
I think they were using D88 tape decks.
They might have been. That was very close to the time when
Things were starting to switch over.
I was in fact emailing a friend of mine. I said, I don't like this Pro Tools thing.
Well, wait, but Mary Elizabeth was dealing with half frames, sync frames when she
Okay,
was
so-
spacing, so that was, yeah.
So you guys may have dealt
Yeah.
with it.
Okay, I might have been.
See, there's how a lot of places work where they track it in Pro Tools and they fix it on the fly and they move on. It's like, we want to see the line looking great
Right then.
right then and there so that we can release the actor and know said actor is done. Well, us anal retentive studio owners, when that material shows up to us and we look at it and we say, that really? That's what you thought was in the sync? I recut every single line of dialogue in Cowboy Bebop. Every single line, because it showed up to me. This is what's crazy. That show showed up to me later when, my future story that we'll get to, it was on tape. And they also had a new picture source and new audio elements for the newer versions. And so nothing was totally in sync at that moment. I mean, it was so ridiculous that you guys don't know this, but if you put on headphones and listen to the early stereo-only versions, you will hear beep right before people's lines, and it's the third beep that's supposed to be edited out that somehow made it.
I didn't know that.
Some of us know things.
But there's something you all have to know about Les. I mean, that doesn't take a perfectionist to hear about that, but he's really an incredible engineer on a perfectionist level. This guy is detail-oriented like nobody's business. So when you are looking at any of his work, there's very few flaws, if any. So I just had to say that, because some of you just might not know. There.
My check will clear on Thursday.
Buy me a beer.
Or you can swipe.
So that's the other thing there's a lot of shows we did where the sync is like, yeah, that's kind of sketchy. But it's the best anybody could do when it was the tape and not every line used to go into the computer. And then there's the stuff that was all tracked in the computer, but they still don't have the 5 or 10 minutes I might spend on a line. Just sitting there, cut, and then you get to a certain part on these things where, I'm starting to ruin the performance. The sync is perfect, but now it sounds like I'm cutting to those lips that are on the screen. Like, okay, I think I went a little too far on that one. We'll smooth that one back out. Delete, undo. So that's the other thing you deal with when it comes to sync is the technology at each point in time, and then did they even have a dialogue editor, or was it just the director and the engineer working at the speed of light going, that is good enough. And yes, we're married, but every time I would get one of her scripts, didn't matter what show it was, Ghost in the Shell, Standalone, Castle Kalios, that doesn't matter. I would always get Mary's script, and when it was all tracked, it was time for me to cut the dialogue, I would simply grab the first word of the line, drop that sucker on the first open lip flap, look at it and go, yeah, we're done here. Not like cut, paste. She always, there's a thing called internal sync. There's hit in the beginning, hit in the end, that's wonderful, that always has to be done. But there's that whole internal thing where a lot of writers just say, I'm not spending the extra, 70% of the time it
To
takes
make
to
this perfect in the
all
middle.
the internal.
Yeah.
And a good writer will grab it, you drop it on that first lip flap, and you watch it, and it's like, wow, every T, P, all the letters are hitting all the lip flaps correctly. So getting paid the same to cut some other people's dialogue is always getting paid to cut hers. Wow, I think I was stealing money and spending somebody.
And it has to do also with when you go into the studio as an actor and you have 75 lines and you're expected a couple of hours to finish it or what have you. And all of a sudden only an hour and 10 minutes went by and you're done. And it's because you have a writer like Mary who has done such a great job that it was not hard to do. As opposed to everybody trying to figure out, well, how can we make this better? I want to make are we don't lose out on questions in case people wanted to ask questions.
Totally fine.
Anytime anybody wants to ask a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any questions?
Something in mind.
Hi, Ben.
I mean, you guys asked, a lot of my question was like, how do you know that something's coming up? It sounds like it's 3 beeps.
3 beeps.
Yeah, now, when it comes to actually cutting the dialogue, when it comes to cutting the dialogue, so you're literally just working with the sound and you never change, like, maybe grab a frame of the video and...
No.
So
Picture is never touched.
Okay, then the next thing is so this is quite a while ago. This is when computers are just coming in. So did you have any semblance of a waveform, or did you just do this?
No, I mean, from the get-go,
Just
it,
by
it,
what you
it
did?
was slow and clunky and a limited amount of tracks. And what you would have to do initially is, it's recorded on tape. Pick the worst lines that are really bugging you. Like, I need this camera. Jacks. Initially, we wouldn't do every line. You know, it's still tape-based and the computer's kind of clunky, so you would, like, okay, pick the worst of the worst, make up the hit list, import them, fix them, spin them back to tape. Then it got to the point where everything's recorded in a computer, and everybody would slip and do little fixes. A guy like me, if I'm sitting there and they tell me I'm going to recut every line of dialogue in Akira, well, I'm not doing that in a hurry. It's Akira, people. However long you think it's going to take as long as I tell you it's going to take. How that works is it's now all in the computer. You sit there and, I mean, you may cut an S, may go too long. Should we go that way? That's too long of an S for said mouth flap. So we'll trim the S and we shouldn't go that way. And you'll take 8 takes, 9 takes of the same line and grab parts of each one until you get the one that sounds the smoothest, the intent. And your directors and everybody have to trust you because they're not there. I'm sitting there doing this stuff by myself, you know, or dialogue editors are. The directors don't have the time.
And a lot of them are oblivious. Actors and directors are oblivious to what he's done. I know I was.
So one last thing,
I'm just oblivious.
I don't want to hog
Oh, sorry.
anything,
More
but,
questions.
So then when it comes to the writing, so I'm kind of rewinding, so you have a tape, and you have, actually, I'm sorry, not tape, but you have the video.
Yes.
And was this literally on tape, so you would like rewind
I
one
was
frame at
working
a
with-
time and watch it over and over and over again?
Yep, I was
and then-
working with the VHS tape.
And then you try and
And I had a
match the
professional
dialogue to-
deck, yeah, and I could play it forward, backwards, I could toggle frame by frame.
Yeah, that was
You
important.
usually watch through it, then you start, and I used to have to punch in my own time code because you have an in and an out. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you write the time code, so you have the hour, the minute, the second, the frame with colon, so you type that in. And sometimes if I had the opportunity to slip the time code, let's say I have a character who starts on camera, but there's a little bit of off camera there. If I have the ability to use a little creative license there, I'll start him earlier because I see an opportunity to either add to his dialogue, or maybe the dialogue from Japan is really long and I only have 4 lip flaps for the guy. That can be a problem because the translation can bear no resemblance to the amount of lip flaps that I have to fill. Or it could be converse, where there's only one little flap, yeah, and that's it, and but you get blah, 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 blah in whatever. So I have to fill that. And I was using a VHS tape, and I would toggle it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I'm a slow writer. I'll admit I'm probably the slowest horse in the stable. But I wanted to hit the sync, and I didn't want to just do it mechanically. I wanted it to sound natural and fluid and idiomatic, so it sounded like people were talking to each other in a conversational manner for the demographic. So that's how I operate.
That's
And
amazing.
she had kind of an unfair advantage because back in the days of writing for VHS, you're using a consumer tape deck, which, you know, fast forward, okay, go back, I can't find the frame, you know, jog. So I had in 1980 something dollars, I had a $2,500 VHS deck, industrial. So, yeah, monstrous JVC, I mean. So, and it was a total pro deck, it's what we locked up audio tapes to. So, you know, after a few years of using that, we moved over to 3/4-inch decks. I had to buy a bunch of those. So I just let her use my big, giant industrial JVC tape deck. So she could sit there and frame at a time, find the exact lip sync. So I was kind of like, well, I have to edit this later. So any secret weapon I can give her to make things better, and here you go.
Yeah, and with the kids, like, mommy, 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 mommy's writing. Mommy, mommy, mommy's writing. Mommy, mommy. Mommy's writing. Mommy's going crazy.
That's when you find Punch and Judy going, mommy's writing. Is that it?
Mommy, I don't get it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Money support,
For,
mommy.
Before we move on, was there any other questions relevant to this topic? Oh, uh-oh, audio guy.
Yeah,
I'll hang on to the mic.
It's Jack Frost's brother.
Were there any challenge restrictions imposed on you from the creators that otherwise kept you from doing something that you thought was the right way of doing it?
Time and money? Those always creep in. Okay, well, since Victor's, I'm sorry, hopefully we have plenty of time.
You're fine, keep going.
You're good.
You got
So,
plenty of time.
for those of you that don't know, other than fixing the darn talkback mic, I had no involvement with Bebop for the stereo mixes in the original production of it. And, I didn't really care. It was like, so I've got, Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Trigun. I've got all these shows. I'm not jealous, And then it started getting more and more popular and more popular. Damn it. I kind of wish I took that one. That's a cool show. So after it had been out, it wasn't that popular in Japan, but stateside, after these guys got done with it, it became smoking and it started going through the roof. Well, I eventually get this call saying, they're thinking about redoing 5 or 6 episodes, I believe, called the Best Sessions. They're thinking about redoing these in this new thing called 5.1 Surround. Ooh, that would be a sign me to heck up. So Yutaka Maseba asked me, do you want to be in charge of that? What do you think? He says, well, you got a 5.1 room up right now? No, but that ain't gonna stop us. Just send them. So I hire POP Sound and I supervise. And we recut these things, and one of the first things I did was get rid of all the American added sound effects. Every last one of them. Out they go. Because Japan sent me brand new, we're still not sure the show is that popular, so we're only going to do 6 episodes, sure, of brand new 5.1 elements that Japan built. So I supervised those 6 mixes, and we're doing crazy stuff. We're panning dialogue to match the effects. We're like, oh, you can't pan dialogue. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want in anime. Look at that. The car's flying this way. The guy's yelling. That dialogue's going with it, like it should. So we did those 6 episodes, and part of the answer to your question is we didn't change what they had given us because this time they had taken the time and built some righteous stuff, and they sent us the music in 5.1 as well, which this kind of, whenever you get to do that, you just sit there and go, this is really cool. The whole room is filled with this amazing music. So we did those episodes, and nobody was even sure at that point, is this a really popular show? Could we redo the whole series? Well, obviously the Best Sessions sold well through the roof, and hello. They want to redo the whole rest of the show in 5.1. Yes! 'Cause at that point in time, I'm so jealous now, like, I never got to work on Bebop. And so the whole show shows up, and so we had to recut the dialogue, and that's where I had the story of, like, I never cut the dialogue originally, because there's up here in beeps. If you have the original stereo DVD somewhere, watch some of those suckers with headphones. At first I thought, that's just a spaceship, that's their ship. No, there's no spaceship in this scene out in the city street. But what is that? Oh my God, it's right there. It's the 3rd beep they'd ever cut out. So there's actually technical mistakes in the stereo. I had to go back and cut all that dialogue, cut all those beeps out. And we really didn't get any instruction from Japan. I don't know if it's because it was me and I was lucky and they usually left me alone, but they just said, here, mix them.
I'm sorry, I have a question. The beeps you're talking about, were they, because some of us didn't have our headsets on and they were in the room, and so or they were in the room anyway, even though we had our headsets on? So where's the beep coming? You know what I'm saying?
Your headsets.
They're coming through the headset?
Yeah.
That's so loud. What the, who's deaf?
Yes. Okay, there's 2 reasons for it. Every once in a while, somebody would say, could you turn up the beeps? Could you turn up the beeps? And after the session, we put them on and I'd say, dude, Phil, play the beeps.
Yeah, exactly.
What is this person deaf?
Yes.
And so that, and then that's the second factor is some actors, you guys know, like to dub with one headphone off. They like to hear their own voice in the booth, and they also want to hear reference and
And
beeps.
it's not really sitting there, yeah.
And the third part of that problem is there are basically 2 kinds of headphones. closed, sealed ear, and open ear. Open ears sound better for music if you're listening for quality and enjoyment of music, because there's air, they're breathing. For ADR, you want closed ear headphones. You want as little noise getting out of those phones as possible. So, yeah, the original stereo mixes, the guy that originally did them spent a ton of time cutting all these new sound effects instead of concentrating on his job, which was clean up the dialogue, do an accurate mix compared to Japanese. So, in the 5.1s, we just sat there and we had a blast. I mean, we were doing things like, oh, you really can't do it. Shut up, we can do whatever we want. And no, Japan, they sent us no special instructions whatsoever. Like, here's your new elements, have fun.
Yeah, in my particular case, when I work, I like to have one off.
Yeah.
If you are closed over like that, you cannot, we call it here in the room.
Right.
And you can also not pick out whether or not you feel like you're projecting a little too far. So I go off one ear like that. Sometimes the beeps are deafening. Also, I will ask for the beeps to be turned up if they already have music and effects. Because sometimes I can't hear the beeps because there are explosions and people screaming and yelling. And if I'm the last guy to work on the dialogue part, there's lots and lots to distract me. So we'll ask for the beeps to be up. But I don't talk until the 4th one, and that's when they're supposed to, the imaginary beep, that's when they're supposed to start recording on me. So when you get those extra beeps in there, you can imagine you as an audience member, the guy's standing alone in the middle of the desert, there's no wind. What was that beep sound?
Exactly. I know, I wondered that.
And anyone? Mas? Mas?
That switch is actually a really easy one for y'all. Just bringing back some good memories. Tell us a little bit about one favorite memory you have working on the show, or even just anything after you were done working on it, and you got to watch the completed product. What was most memorable to you about working on Bebop itself? Okay. What sticks out in your mind? I know it's a pretty loaded question, but anything, first thing.
Well, what was insane for me is that because what Leah and I did had nothing to do with interacting with the actors. They were watching us on TV.
Right.
People, what was it like to work with us? I said, I never worked with them. My character was on TV. One of my favorite things about it was that after Big Shot got canceled, and Judy said, I'm going to call my agent, right? And my line was, our ratings suck, shucks, howdy, That was one of my last cues, right? So there was the scene near the end where my character, the actor, is not on anymore. It was one of the rare cases where I got to use my own voice. I was going to pick my mom up, and so I went to get her, and we were walking, I forget what it was, the hospital? Somebody else told me it was not. I thought I was picking her up at the hospital and taking her home. Well, Faye happens to be standing here by this railing. And I walk by, and I'm taking my mom up, and we're talking and stuff like that. And my mom says, whatever happened to that lady that you were working with on the TV? I said, oh, Mom, I think she married her agent. And I go walking by, and I'm taking my mom out, and then Faye looks over, and she says, something about that guy. Because she'd been watching me on TV the whole time. But now this was the kick. About 5 or 6 years later, I was coming into Magnitude 8 to work on a session. Mary and Wendy were coming out. They had just finished. And Mary and I do one of two things when we see each other. We either say, shucks, howdy, and then I say one of my lines as Punch, or she says, poor Wormman, because she directed a lot of those sessions and she knew my word was Wormman. Well, in this particular case, she's coming out with Wendy, and Mary sees me and she says, shucks, howdy, and I said, no bounty for no computer, no way. Wendy looks at me and her eyes get as big as saucers, and she says, that was you? All these years later, she didn't realize that I had played that character. She had no idea it was me. That is my single, based on the show and what happened years later, my single favorite memory from that.
Episode 25, you were at Punch was at the airport.
Okay,
that's how I remember.
That's what it was. Thank you.
I might have
Oh, it was
watched.
the airport now.
I might have watched this series
Once or twice.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, the fans know more about individual chunks of things than any of us ever will.
Absolutely, we just don't have time. That we don't get to walk in, Les doesn't say, okay, Paul, we're gonna take 2 hours and talk about the synopsis, and then we're gonna bring the whole cast and we're gonna do a table read of the series from start to finish. No, never happens.
I don't know if to this day, if I really know what's going on in Cowboy Bebop. I'm so sorry. I was just on TV, you know, that's my real part. No, I have to say that probably the most fun for me was the fact that Mary Elizabeth McGlynn is probably one of the funniest people I know. She's got an incredible sense of humor. So there was a lot of laughter.
She has a great laugh.
There was a lot of laughter in the work process. You know, we worked hard, but there was humor just about almost after every line and take and everything else. And again, Judy is just too funny for words, so that went along with it. So I think probably humor was.
I've got a couple, and one actually involves the Bebop movie. Oh no, it's not a nice story initially. It's a pretty horrible story initially. It's Edition Central here it goes. Remember, I didn't, I wasn't there originally, so people say, what's your favorite part of it, or what's your favorite character? I said this at ALA at the Big Bebop reunion. My favorite character in the show has to be, and this is not patronizing or trying to get free drinks tonight, but I'm open to that. I would have never worked on the show without the fans. If the show had not become popular, I would have nothing. I wouldn't be sitting up here. I wouldn't be talking about it. It's a middle of the road show that was, it's a great show, but it wasn't that popular. The fans said, oh no, it's not. It's a great show. We're going to buy the hell out of this. And yes, you get to work on it now. So that's one of my favorite things is the fact that I got to work on it. And it's not like my resume needed it, but now it's like, you got that Bebop convention coming up here, well, invite me. So I'm just glad it became popular. Otherwise, it would be, it's the one that got away if it wasn't for the fans' involvement. Of course, my favorite episode working on it is Mushroom Samba. That's ridiculous. They're all high, and we've got the dog, and they've got a bounty hunter that's dragging a coffin around. You want to know why I'm driving this coffin? Wherever I go to put your ass in it. This is genius. Wait a minute, what is this? This is amazing. The guy's dragging a coffin around because he's a bounty hunter. What? Yes, I love this. But to show my appreciation for the fans and geeks and nerds, and specifically because we all know it doesn't matter if we think we are or not, we are. I'm hired to do the movie, supervise the sound for the movie, but Sony is doing it. So I get this phone call from Yutaka, and he says, look, Japan is going to send out a friggin' army of people to be on the Sony mix stage and work on this thing if you don't go. If you go supervise, they said they're comfortable just staying home and they'll let you run point on it. I thought, well, it's kind of under there. So I'm driving 2.5 hours every day to Sony for the final mix. Well, prior to doing that, I meet with the mix engineer who's also doing editorial. And I tell him, like, I go, look, dude, I know you guys are fast here at Sony, get it done, quality is, secondary. I said, my job is to slow you down a little bit and make sure this is what Japan expects out of me. After that meeting, I'm driving home on the 405, or wherever it was from Sony, my cell phone rings, you can still talk, while you're driving. It's the head of Sony's audio department losing his mind. My mixer came to me and said, you're going to slow the process down, and he can't have that, blah, 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 blah. What the? Dude, I said, I just want to make it good. Is that really what causes Sony's audio department to collapse? Is quality? So they're losing their minds about it. Who's he related to? Is like his dad owns Sony? What is this? So I tell you, Taka is in the room, takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time, but I love doing it. I'm trying to explain that to the mixer, and he's only got 2 reverbs or echoes that he can use. One is like a repeat. Well, that's going to be useful. And the other is like a big sized room. I'm like, well, you're going to need about 20 more to get through this movie because people are in different sized rooms.
In a spaceship.
Yeah, exactly. And I would have a metallic sound for it. Anyway, so he's like, no, we don't need that. And so I'm getting all this grief, and they literally will do nothing I ask for. So
the big producer from Sony, he's sitting there and he's backing up the mixer. They'll do nothing. So I just went and sat back like in the seats of the mix theater and said nothing. And I called Yutaka and said, dude, I'm gonna quit. You're not paying me enough. I'm not giving you anything for your money. They're not listening to me. Well, thank you, geeks. I love you, I love you, I love you. After day 3 or 4 of being completely ignored, mistreated, disrespected, they couldn't care less that I have all this anime background. The head of their audio division, IT, comes walking in. And as soon as they said, yeah, he's our IT guy, he's here checking all the computer stuff, the first thought was, I guarantee that dude knows who I am. He's the IT guy, he's gonna be into anime. He walks in and he looks at the screen and goes, oh my God, you guys are doing Bebop, the movie? And I said, yeah, and he's talking to me, he doesn't want to bug the mix guys. I said, hi, I'm Les Claypool. What? Yeah, I'm Les Claypool, I'm supposed to be surprised. And he starts yelling, oh dear God, you're a legend in anime, I've seen all your work, your audio's great. The producer and the other guy from Sony, who've been treating me like garbage, the whole mix, they turn around and they stop. And they're listening to the head of their IT sit there and talk about all the things I've done and what I've done and what shows, and they're like, who is this guy that's sitting here that we've been disrespecting for 4 days? And I thought, I love geeks. I love nerds. I love. That's it for me.
And the geeks love you too.
And you know, I'm a manly man and not geeky in it. Ray Harryhausen movies? There's a Ray Harryhausen movie.
He's not lying about that. Well, I only wrote the 1 episode, 22, and when I was handed Bebop, I knew nothing about it. And I remember Kevin Seymour, who was the director, my mentor, he handed me the VHS tape. So I pop it into the deck, and it just comes on with this amazing jazz music. And my first thought is, give me the wrong tape. What is this? And I go, no, just watch it. And I watched the whole Japanese episode. It's like, that music is amazing. And I'm watching the visuals, like, who are these characters? This is weird. It's like a funky mix of like Blade Runner and something else. I love science fiction, just love it. So as soon as I watched it, oh yes, I really wanted to do a lot more than one of those episodes. And when I got into it, I really loved writing for all those characters. And Andy, the crazy cowboy, the very best thing at the end when he cashes in his cowboyness and hands Spike the hat and says, you know, see ya, space cowboy. Oh yes, I get to write that. It was funny.
You know, I have to dovetail on that because one of the other fun things was when I was in the booth and you sometimes come in and they're queuing the scene up for you that you're in. Sometimes it starts at the beginning because they're just sort of getting the tape ready and so forth. And so that music came on. And I was just like, yeah. All the time before, you know, every session I'd be like, yeah, play that music. Don't ever play that music, play it. You know, I always wanted to play. So that was extra fun.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to give this to you so you can say
I
whatever.
actually got one music thing. I said I was done my life.
No.
So here's a dirty little secret. The dirty secret of audio mixing is when you're doing series television or series shows, there's no time to sit there and listen to that opening music cue every time you sit down to work. It's just like, no, I know what it is. I've already checked it, it's fine. Yeah, when we're doing the 5.1 mixes of Bebop, we listen to the, especially in 5.1, when you hear Tank in 5.1 on a really good speaker system, you're just like, yes. So, one of the things that would happen a lot is you'd sit down and start mixing, and you just start mixing after the music cue. You don't need it. Once your ear is adjusted to the volume level where you have to be, you know what it is, and you just mix. You know where you're supposed to be. So even on the playbacks for the clients, for the director, for whoever, it didn't matter what I was doing. Even if I was just QCing the elements, it would be Tank. Every time we watch that show, we listen to the opening credits. Stand Alone was another one, where when we got Stand Alone in 5.1, it was like, Oh, yes, yes, yes. And it's like, why are you listening to the opening credits again? Shh. So that's kind of like a little audio post thing, is you don't always listen to the music, but when it's hot, you do.
Sam,
So,
do you have Cowboy Bebop? Do you have like where
We
we
have-
can hear it before we all go?
That, unfortunately, that computer is locked, but actually,
Come
I
on.
tried.
Come on.
sing it.
Bring it on. We all gotta hear it. Come on, especially on the
All right, perfect. Well, while they figure that out, first of all, thank you to our entire. We're not done yet, of course. We still have about.
Seconds.
I
We'll
can,
make them count.
I can cut this as short or as long as I want to.
So there.
Yeah.
I want to hear a line what Spike says from you.
You want to hear me try to emulate Steve Blue?
Yeah.
Yeah,
do it.
You ever heard this story?
I can do it.
Okay, loud.
Can we just take a moment to appreciate this?
Yeah, so now we move back to you.
Full song? We just gotta hear it like, you know. Full song. Know this thing. Get everybody to start together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Yeah. jamming out and enjoying the music. I would stop and let people go, man, I'm like, this is really worth it. Close. Let's go ahead and fade it out because you know what? We're going to save the best part of it. You know what? Can we just keep it running? Alright, we're done. Yeah, let's alright, bring it down, bring it down. Little dance break for everybody there. So, thank you so much. We're probably the real point is at the end. Let's just cue that up. I'm just going to warn you right now. So, Lee, you wanted to hear me actually try to emulate Bloom.
Yes.
This is terrible because Steve Bloom, who was the voice of Spike, has such an iconic voice. So I feel I'm not doing it justice.
It
But
doesn't matter. You don't just sound like him. You just have to do Spike.
well, you ever heard this story? There once was a tiger-striped cat. This cat died a million times and relived a million times. And he was owned by various people whom he really didn't care for. The cat wasn't afraid to die. Then one day, the cat became a stray cat, which meant it was free. He met a white female cat. And the two of them spent their days together happily.
Well, years passed and the white cat grew weak and died of old age. The tiger-striped cat cried 1,000,000 times. And then he died too. Except this time he didn't come back to life. Yeah, it's a good story. I hate that story. No, I never liked cats. You remember that? Oh yeah, that's right. That's good. That's the influence that Bebop's had on all of us fans. It's so iconic, and when you can rattle off lines like that from just pure memory, pure love of the show. So it's good. Any questions from the crowd? I know we have a little bit of time left. We've covered a lot here. So any questions for our lovely panelists? Anything rattling on the mind right now?
Lovely.
Okay, we have a question over here. I'll take care of this, Valentine. It's all right. You can stay there and do whatever because you're lost on the ship anyway. What's your question?
Okay, obviously, Bebop did influence me musically as you saw, but did it somehow influence you in a different kind of way? Like not just like I'm working on the show, but like did it awaken like the artist in you? Like
Darn you, Craig, and your deep questions.
That's
what I do.
Well, kind of what I had said in the early parts that I normally wouldn't think of myself as playing somebody like Judy. And not that I don't play high voices, but she had a particular quality about her that is not something that is in my wheelhouse. So the fact that I accomplished it made me feel like I could go that much further into other things that I could accomplish, and add to my versatility, which was really nice. So it was very cool. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people ask that question of us, how did the music influence your character choices? We didn't have the music to work with at that time. Wow. We were in there, we don't say, okay, cue up the music before I start so I can hear the soundtrack. Okay, now I'm ready. And also in my particular case, when I did hear anything, it was a banjo. So Punch didn't get a chance to hear what we just heard. Yeah, I was like, so we didn't get that stuff, no. We were in there going, hola amigos, so it's, so I'm not going to be able to hear this amazing, old jazz kick-ass orchestra like that, no way. No way.
So I can tell you that the 5.1 mixes, all the redos are completely 100% influenced and inspired by listening to that opening credit song. If that opening credit song had sucked, it would have just been another job, honestly. You do it as best you can with the money you've been given, the time you've been given. But every time we would listen to that darn opening credit song, it's like, we just can't leave the mix stage until we're getting what we want. It's all got to be as good as the opening. It drove us crazy because those, you show up some days like, God, I'm so tired. Okay, here we go, another day of perfection. Start the music.
Well, every project has its own unique challenges, but this was something I hadn't done before, this particular show, and I wanted to go back and look at some of the work that Mark Handler, the primary writer of the show, had done. And he's a very good writer, and it's not just his mechanics, he really brings to the table some great dialogue. And I thought, I'm really gonna have to step up my game to keep pace with everything that's been going on in the show so far. So I thought in that respect it was a great challenge for me, and an honor to work on this show, and to be counted among the writers like Mark. So that was a wonderful experience, and it's funny, just this last couple of weeks, I wanted to be fresh in my mind some of the episodes, so I watched about 10 of the episodes. And you forget how great it was, and I was outright chuckling and almost brought to tears in some of them. And it's like, God, that was, take for granted how great some things really are. And when you're in a great show, everyone is putting out 120%, and the actors are having fun with their characters. They know their characters, and they're really putting themselves into it, as did the writers, as did the audio, as did everyone who was involved in the project. and you can see it. It's palpable, it's real, it's a tangible thing. And I think that is what made the show so freaking great.
It's funny because you can't talk about the performances without, like they have previously talking about Mary Elizabeth. And when she first started coming to my place, she's just an actress. She's good, and I was glad to have her on roles or in roles because I knew it would be good. But I never had much connection to her directing. Well, she did Wolf's Rain at my place. We did the whole show there, and see, being the owner, being the boss man, I have an unfair advantage. I get to look at all this stuff we're going and go, really? Show about wolves and kids that turn into wolves. You won't mind if I go work on something like, whatever I was doing at the time, whatever other shows, like, no, I'm gonna take this one, Legend of Black Hammer or something, that I can relate to. Then, when you own the place, even if I don't have direct involvement with it, my guys have to do what it is I want to hear. So they have to mix the way I want to hear it, they gotta track it the way I want to track. And then I usually would listen to everything before it left my facility. It didn't matter if I never even touched it, I have to hear it before it leaves the building. So I start watching Wolf's Rain, I'm thinking, oh God, kids are turning into wolves. Really? Wait a minute. They're acting their asses off. This is a cool show. Wait, how did that happen? Oh, Mary got performances out of these people. So, everybody involved. It's the writers, they have to nail it, they have to understand it. The director has to really care and work and work and work. And even though we didn't do it, the dialogue at Maggie, all the shows we did do, we had a bad financial habit of kind of looking the other way. And like, well, if it takes an extra 20 minutes to get it really good, then it's an extra 20 minutes. You can't bill for it, but how do you bill for people 20 years later coming to see you talk about stuff because it turned out so well?
Yeah, it's like the weakest link. It's like if one department, one person, one aspect of it
Is weak or fails, you've just ruined the entire project. So to bring all these elements together is a miraculous thing sometimes.
Mary Elizabeth, I don't know if you guys know this, but the director, that was her first project, Cowboy Bebop.
Wow.
And so that's how talented she's kind of just in general, and before that as an actor and a performer, and she also a kick-ass singer, and all kinds of things.
She was always in our place singing.
Yeah, she's just multi-talented, but to take on Cowboy Bebop as her first one, again, that was Kevin, who really has an understanding of his talent and his stable of talent. So he would put people in situations knowing that they would be good at it. He just had that kind of innate trust and ability.
Yeah, when I walked in, I had never met Mary before, so I walked in for this first session I was going to be doing. She said, so Kevin tells me you're a linguist, right? And I said, well, yeah, dialects and accents and phonetics, all the stuff. Okay, and so she was using that right away, like, okay, I know what Kevin said about the performance, I want to see what he's going to do with it. And you saw the result. I should be locked up for the result. But I mean, as much fun as it was, but she wanted to talk to me directly about that and ask me right away. And after that, I mean, we just could not stop laughing sometimes. But that was it. Kevin could bring that person in who was right for the project, and he knew that she could work very well with all of us. One of the best ways to keep working in this business is to be someone you can work with. I need to be that person that you can work with. Rather than come in and say my way. I know the best way, I'm not going to listen to anybody.
But we kept hiring you anyway.
Yeah, it's bizarre. In spite of the terrible the body count from my very first project back in 1980, I'm still here. I'm still working. I'm still working with people.
Woodrow Wilson.
I was there for Lincoln's assassination. You guys know why he got killed? He ordered a shot. Wait, I'm sorry, too soon? Too soon. That's how you finish the joke.
I got something for you.
Okay, what's up?
Obviously, he likes Steve Bloom. I think we noticed that.
A little bit.
Here's a snippet for you. When our daughter was young, because Steve Bloom basically was there, the acting community helped raise our kid. So one day, Steve Bloom is out in our commons area, and our little girl is sitting on the floor playing it, 3 or 4 years old. And Steve is doing what many of you would write a check for, to have personally happen to you. He's doing every voice he's ever done, speaking to our daughter.
And he's done this to her many times.
And her response, I'll let, she heard it, not me.
But this was our daughter's response to Steve Bloom.
Yes, our daughter was playing on the floor while Steve was trying to entertain her, again, as usual, as he always did. She sighs and looks at him. Why are you always talking to me? I'm trying to play here.
I have to ask, do you two tease her about that?
Daily.
Daily?
Daily.
So worth it.
She's finally learned that she can work with parents. It's like, you know, up until she got into anime, it's like, they're just my stupid parents. They got all these people coming. And now it's like, wait a minute, we can cut lines at AX and just go directly backstage and talk to Steve Bloom. Yeah, you know, the guy that you said, why are you talking to me?
And now she's a big anime fan.
She's the biggest otaku
Crazy.
you've ever
Crazy.
seen.
I get it,
Yeah.
Cosplaying that one time. Kingdom Hearts fans, big time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because you know, you left her a message on my phone years ago.
Yeah, it was to make her obey.
As one of her favorite characters.
I said,
You must listen to your parents. Or Xemnas will be upset with you. She was not happy with it because I as Xemnas was agreeing with her parents that she had.
As great a story as that was, it didn't work.
just goes to show you, Xemnas doesn't have authority beyond Organization 13. A teenage girl, that's it, I can't do anything.
Alright, I'm taking it. It looks like we are out of time for our panel. I do want to thank each and every one of you, Paul, Leah, Ashley, Mary. This goes to our own panel. Thanks to all of our attendees. Again, yeah, they will have you. Yeah, let's go. Keep it for everybody in here. Thank you all for tuning into our Cowboy Bebop panel. Thanks for tuning in. Closing ceremonies will be happening at, I believe, 4 p.m. Is that correct? 4 p.m. So it will be in here. So we'll close out and have a good time and end this convention strong. Again, to our panelists, thank you very much. You are all clear to go. Thank you. All right. Take care, everyone.
All right, everybody. So that is it for our or technically the third day, but our second day here. So I had to switch to my phone right now because during trying to film the Cowboy Bebop panel, pretty much running out of memory. But other than that, it was super awesome getting to meet the people who helped make it, some of the voice actors, and all in all, a freaking fun time. Did you have fun, Miss Toast? Yes. So yeah, we enjoy it. Probably spent way too much money in figures, but hell, it was worth it. Ain't getting in a Comic-Con this year with how the tickets are, but yeah, Anime Conji is probably a thing. Definitely gonna go to next year. So as usual, if you guys are new here, be sure to subscribe. If you are already subscribed, be sure to slap a like on this video. As always, I thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.